In the last video we made the settings page UI. So we started with making this UI, which is right now just plain, static text. There's nothing really done, there's no binding, there's nothing there. So in this video we're going to make this actually the real UI with editable text and things. Before that, for those following along video by video that want to stay up to date, I've done a small, well, I say a small tweak. I did a video on repairing these framework animations and it just turned out to be long-winded and very boring, so I didn't bother including that. But all I've done really is just fix the framework animation. Well, I did two things. One, I tidied up, so you can see this framework, this animation sliding direction enum, and this was a guy on YouTube that also commented on the recent video of suggesting why I hadn't done it this way in the first place. And to be honest, there was no reason. I simply overlooked cleaning up the code because we originally just started with one animation. So I started by cleaning up the animations. So now there's just a slide in, slide out. I'll just hide that out of the way. And instead of having a slide in left, slide in right, slide in top, slide in bottom, we're just simply now passing the direction, share all the code, and simply do this little bit per direction. And that cleans up the animation a lot. Then I also added a fix. It was basically one fix that turned out to be a decent amount of work, but in short, the mistake I made was these properties, animation-based properties that turn into specific animations and then do animation. We were checking an individual variable called already loaded or first load, if you remember. And the problem with that is this class is actually shared between multiple controls, so multiple elements on the UI. So if we bind to say fade in to 6 different elements, it's going to be this exact same copy of this class. So the original variable we had, which was just a single Boolean, if one element loaded and was set to first load as true, or rather first load as false on the second way around, but then the next element loaded, it would say that it's not the first load. So it was an issue with that. So what I did instead was made a dictionary and linked in the Boolean to the specific UI element and then set a flag per one, and that fixed that issue. And then the last issue I noticed was what would happen is we'd say we are we loaded, and we're not. So we'd come into here, we'd wait this 5 milliseconds, and then we'd do an animation. But then what would happen is we'd fire this value updated, it'd be the first load, it'd come into here, set it to false, then the value would change before this 5 milliseconds had ended to say another value. So then it'd come in here, this didn't match, and it'd come straight to do animation. So it had set it up to the correct value, but then 5 milliseconds later the old value kicks in and animates to the wrong state. So it was also to fix that issue. And I'm not going to bore you with how I fixed that. It's a simple enough fix, and if you look in the Versetto Word commits and just look for this fix animation property bugs, and you can see the code I did here and exactly the changes. So if you want to scroll that, just do that. If you've got any specific comments, just leave them in the video and I'll answer them. But I didn't want to waste a video on just that because it's a fairly boring thing. It's basically a bug fix. So I didn't want to do a video just on an animation bug fix. So that's that. We'll need Font Awesome later for the icons for the buttons, so we'll leave that open for now. So that's the framework animation stuff fixed. And then if we run this, as we mentioned, we're now going to do this code. So let's get into it. I think the first thing looking at this, the more I look at it, I've had a quick glance between that and the preview we did. I think this wants more spacing. And I think it also wants to be slightly thinner still, just to tweak that. So let's just open up the settings page first. Settings, control. And let's change the width down a little bit. So I think this 700 is a little bit much. It's right on the edge, so let's just bring that in a little bit more, and that looks more realistic. Then this picture margin as well, I think I want to just bump up a little bit. So let's try 20, 30. Yeah, let's go for that nice big spacing. And let's just have a look. Yeah, that looks much nicer now. I think it just needed that space, and then we'll space these out more in a minute as well. But the first thing we want to do is to move these. Right now, these are just in a grid, all dumped in and all individual things. And now when we get to wanting to add hover over and edit effects, it's going to start getting messy. So we want to create another user control to host all this, basically a label, a content, a button per one. So let's start with first, let's do the simple stuff. Let's get all the bulk work out the way. We know we'll need a view model. So let's go into the view models, wrong one, the core view models. Let's just tidy this up as well at the minute. Let's just make a new folder. Call it application, just for general, application wide. And then we want a new folder called inputs, I guess, for the text entry, because we'll just call it input. We'll have more entry fields. We'll have like a password one, and we'll have potentially other ways of getting input from the user. Then we'll make a new class. We'll call it text entry view model, because it's going to be for any kind of text entry. We could have just copied a existing view model, but all we want to do is inherit the base view model in this case. So let's just inherit the base view model for a text entry to edit a string value. And you can see this new, that's one thing I didn't fix. I was going to say, you can see this new one's already created the default constructor for us. And also put the public, because I edited the default configuration file that, again, another YouTube comment showed me where to go to tweak this startup. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it'll be in the last video. We should also edit this. I don't like this namespace constantly being the folder. I should tweak that template so I don't have to keep deleting that as well. So we've already got the constructor. It's already commented, so we want public properties now, and we want label, which will be the name, username, password. That's the label. Then we'll have, I guess, original text, because you've got to bear in mind you'll have the text it currently is, plus the text that starts getting edited in case they cancel and you want to revert, so you need the original and the edited. Current saved value. And then edited text. Uncommit's apparently not a word. Okay, non-committed. No, it doesn't like that. Okay, non-commit it seems to like. The current non-commit edited text. We've got the original text, the edit text, the label. We also need a flag for if we're in editing mode or not. And I think that's it for properties. So now we want some commands for do things. We'll have the obvious one first, edit command, and this is going to put the puts the text edit, puts the control into edit mode. Then we'll have a cancel command, cancels out of edit mode. And a save command to commit the work. Commits the edits and saves the value. Goes as well as goes back to non-edit mode. Now let's create those commands in here. So edit command equals new relay command edit. Now we've got cancel save. And we'll have a new region for command methods. Puts the control into edit mode. That couldn't be any simpler. Editing equals true. Simpler than typing the word true correctly. There we go. Public void cancel. This again is just as simple. Editing equals false. And finally the save. So in here we'll have the to do to save the content, which we have nowhere to save any content yet because we have no server, we have no backend storage, but it's all the plumbing that's now done, ready for when we do have that. So once we were saved, we'd then go out of edit mode as well. So now we've got the action here whenever we want to do anything to save that we can plumb in later. So I think that's the view model for the text entry done. Let's make a design view model as well. I'll just copy another one for the minute, paste it in, and this will be text entry design model. And that will inherit the text entry view model. That's actually got the wrong description compared to the other design models. Should fix that for the message dialog one as well. Which one are we in here? The name the same, we need to be careful here. So we name this class first before it gets confusing. Or we name the file rather. Fix the comment. Fix the singleton, and fix the constructor. So now in a text entry design mode, we have label, so we'll do name, original text we'll do name, and edited text we'll do editing, and I think that was it for the 3 values. And then editing by default is false, which is fine. So there's our design model for it. So now we've got that, we can make a control for that, but then also in here where we've got this grid of currently 4 items, these want to be view model bound. So in the, I think we've got a settings view model already. There we go. So in here we want some text entry view models. This one will be name, the current user's name. And then I'm aware that right now we're doing a text entry for a password. Again, we'll change that similar to the login screen, and we'll make a password entry view model with, you know, current and previous and things. But for now, we'll just make it a normal one. You got username, password, and email. So there's the 4 properties we can now bind to. And now we want to create a control. So we will need to start with, if we go, this is the longer job now. Let's start with a new folder here in controls called input. Make a new user control. Call this text entry control. Then in here again, we'll hide that a minute. We'll get rid of the controls and inputs namespace on both of those. Get rid of it here. Get rid of that. And I should edit this template as well, like I did for the other one, really. And we just build to make sure this builds. I always do that whenever I add a new control first, just make sure it builds before we go any further. So we have a buildable control now. So this control wants to be the, zoom out, it wants to be a control per item, so per row. So right now the way this is all done is not really going to work. So let's just get rid of that. Profile details. So it's in column 1. So there we go, that's gone. And then we'll fill this back in once we've got the control. So let's just save that, move over. So starting afresh, the first thing we were missing on our controls from the screenshot was the grey underline. So we know we need to start with a border to add that. So we'll have a border with a border brush of set of dark, and a border thickness left, top, right, and then the bottom will have, say, 0.4. So this is our grey underline. Now in there we will have, again, the label, the text box, and edit button. So we're going to need a grid for that. We also want a background on it. So we'll have the foreground light. Oh, not the background. Foreground light. And we will want 3 columns, I think. We'll want the label, the text box, and the button. So I'll have grid.column definitions. Column definition width auto for the first one. The middle one with the text entry can fill, and then the end one can be the remaining. So that will be label, name, buttons, and that one will expand. What do we want after that? So let's put in the actual text block now, the label, put that back in. Text can now be, oh, we need to bind this actually first. So we want the design time binding, if I can remember. I can never remember what this is. Static local, or is it just local? Static local, text entry design model dot value. Is it that? I think I might have got it right for once. And then to bind to that we had something called label. So will that work? No, so it's complaining about that. Oh, it's not there, it's in core. And then we need to define XML namespace core, because it's in the core library. Now it's complaining about that. So, or does that just need building? Nope. Okay, so that also needs to be binding. I could just look this up. I always forget the design time data context. Oh, I got it right. Typical, got it right there. Just That's instance, not value. There we go. Now we have name, which is the label value. So we're good there. We've got the label in. Let's just start with that. Let's also just remove the width and height. So it just fills to whatever size we need. Bring this over. Then we'll also have a label here, because we're going to have two things here. We're going to have the content, and then we're going to have the editable content as well. So the content is going to be a text block again. Text of original text. We want the grid.column as 1. So it goes in the other column. Then we will want, I guess, looking at it, we need some padding in these two. So the first one we'll put some margin. Let's just get some spacing around. Looks okay, looks a bit high on. There we go, looks about right. So we've got some margin there on that control. We'll have same again here, need a bit of margin. Actually, we also need vertical align by the looks of these, because things are going to be in different order. Let's just do vertical line center on both. And then same on this control, want some margin. We'll do 15 again. Okay, it doesn't actually matter what that is, so let's just leave that there. And then we have, this wants to be regular to be bolder. There we go. And then we'll have a button. Actually, we need the edit content as well. So for when we do go into edit mode, we will need a text box. And that will be text is edited, binding edited text. That's in grid.column 1 as well. That's huge. Let's change that down. Font family. No, we don't need font family, just want font size. Regular, that's better. Now you can see they're slightly misaligned. So you can see how these aren't quite lined up with, and let's just put original text at the minute so we can align exactly the same text. So with that in, let's start messing with the, let's reduce the padding first, get that right down so it's closer to the line, which it's not showing, but there's a line, you know, the blue line. Let's remove that. And now let's just tweak this margin until it hits. So we'll start with, just see what 10 does. We're going to need to do this individually to tweak each one. So the top, left top, right, so that's bringing it in close. It's not moving now. Okay, so that goes over there. Now we need the top. Does that need to be more? So that's not far off. And I think that'll be fine with animation. You can see we've actually got the wording spaced out more there because it's a different font. I think actually, you know what I think the issue is here? This content needs the font set explicitly. We mentioned that the font is not always exactly right unless it's specified explicit. Or we could just quickly spin this up and take a look at it in the real view. So this will be text entry control. This will be, chuck these in a stack panel first because there's going to be a bunch of them. And grid.column as one. So let's just run this and let's just see what they look like in terms of where they're positioned. Because I think we've just got a bit of design time. Oh yeah, that's because we did a design time binding, we need to change that to full binding for the minute again. So let's just do data context is, or rather, let me just do that. So it binds when we're running. Right, so there you can see it's actually, we need to shift back up a little bit. And I think that's about it. I think we just need to shift up slightly. Let's change that to 10. Let's run again. So you can see this visual is not exactly perfect to how it really runs. So the design timer is slightly out, and I'm pretty sure that's due to fonts. So let's move the look slightly back so that M blends in a bit nicer. So we'll leave it at that. So that's close enough for when we fade, because that text underneath will fade out and this will fade in, so you're not going to see it exactly like that anyway. So that should be okay there. So we've got the label, the edit box, the content box. Now we need the buttons. So we're going to have multiple buttons here. You're going to have the edit button initially and then the other two buttons afterwards. So let's just make a grid. Then let's have grid.column is 2. Buttons container. This will be the edit button. And then we'll have the text on the edit button, or the content in this case, just do 3 dots. We clearly need to remove some of that padding or margin, so let's get the padding down. I don't quite trust this designer. Let's remove all margins a minute as well. So there's the margins. That still looks a bit big, but I'm sure that isn't there. Let's just try running that again. I don't fully trust this designer knowing it's slightly out. Yeah, that looks way too big. Let's reduce the font size as well. Put a bit of padding in. Then we'll have not font family. Font size. Let's go small. It still looks too high. Oh, I know. We're stretching out in the vertical line center. That's what was going on. There we go. Thought it looked a bit long for how big the padding was. So that looks quite nice. Let's have a quick run of that. Maybe we might want to reduce the border radius slightly, maybe. But I think that looks, no, it looks okay actually. I want to change that color to grey, and then we want to start doing some fade animations and binding things correctly. So let's change the background color to foreground dark. There we go. We'll come back to the other buttons after. Or yeah, because we want to just start getting this fading in and things and working correctly. So the label is the label. The edit content, which is here, we want to have animate fade in. So we have the animate fade in property.value, and then we want to bind that to the editing. So if we should run that now, we should see as that's disappeared. Until it goes into edit mode, we don't see it. So that's now got rid of that. This wants a hand button, I think, for the, I don't know. Just so it's an obvious click, I think. Just as a little emphasis that that's a click. Let's go to the button, cursor, hand. Also, we can just bind this button now to, I forget what this command, isn't it? So do this to the edit command, and that should actually put us into edit mode. So what should happen is the edit box should fade in. And you can see that's faded in now. But we also now need to fade out the label behind. So to do that, animate fade in again on the content. And we'll put that at the top, about there. But the difference is the content, we want it to be the opposite of editing. So let's just make a new value converter. And let's just copy and paste that. Rename this to Boolean invert converter. A converter that takes in a Boolean and inverts it. So we can simply have, you know, the exact opposite. And just return not Boolean value. And I'm just shortening these functions, these methods, into the quicker way, you know, like the shorter one. If they're just returning a value, you can do the shorthand that looks similar to making the properties, but it's still a function. It's simply, there's no need for the curly brackets, so just keeps things shorter. So we now have a Boolean invert converter. Let's get rid of that we don't use. And we can go to the content, and then the converter of this. I think it's not binding. Static. There's too many different ways of doing this. I can't even remember. Converter. Just local. Boolean to value converter dot. Forgot it again. What was it? Just the name of it. So should just be that, I'm thinking. Let's run that, and we should now have the box on show, and that should fade out and the other one should fade in. There we go. We can tell now because we can select, and then we have no way of cancelling at the minute. So let's just quickly tweak the text entry view model. Let's just change the edit command to toggle between true and false, just so we can test the UI. So now we have fade in, fade out, fade in, and that looks close enough that it's a nice transition. And now it becomes editable. The other annoying thing is, well, for one, we need to change this back to the edit text and not bind directly to well, we'll leave it bound for now. But we want to, when you're clicking that, really, you want it to focus and select this box for us like that. So let's make a few attached properties to do that. Let's go to attached properties. They are framework element, button attached, base attached property, text attached properties. Can be text because it's mainly used, well, in fact, yeah, it's pretty much exclusively used for text. So in here we'll have, copy and paste this one, focus is keyboard focus, this element if true, and then we'll just call this focus. So similar to the is focus, that focus is on load, we'll simply use this one to focus if the value is true. So if e.newValue, which I'm guessing is an object yet, so if the Boolean, if it's true, so if the new value is true, focus this control, and you just simply do the focus itself. So now we can just focus the property if we pass in, or rather if we add edit control local. So we do local focus property.value, and if we bind that to editing, then basically whenever we go into editing mode, it will focus this text box. That's the theory. So we click this, and there we go, we're instantly in focused. The other thing we want to do was to select text as well, not just focus it. So we will go back to here, make another one, and we won't, I don't think we'll do two. We'll simply combine them, focus and select. You can always make a separate one. And selects all text in this element if true. Focus and select, focus and select. Now this will need to be a text box, maybe. Possibly a text box base, but keep it as a text box for now, because otherwise we can't do the select all, which is part of the text box. In fact, we can see where that's part of. Select all text. So if we just see where this select all is with F12, it's in the, oh, so it's in text box base. So at least we can change that to text box base, and anything that has the select all we can use this on. Using primitives, yep, that's fine. So we'll select all the text. Now if we change it to focus and select property, we should now have, when we click the button, it will focus and highlight all the text, which is the way I think we'd want it to work. You can tweak it to just select if you like, or to do what you like, but I think that's what I'd like to do, and then just type the new name. So that's coming along. These buttons we don't want just on show all the time either. These buttons want to, well, this button rather, wants to be only shown, I think, on hover. So let's just add that now. So in the grid itself, and make sure you've got a background, otherwise the hover won't work. So in grid, we'll have hover over to show edit button. This would be grid.triggers, and let's have a look at it again, copy and paste. Let's find some triggers where we already do this, which is an opacity. It's close enough, and that's a control template. Actually, it'll be double animation, I think. Would be probably the best thing to find. So we have an event trigger that does a, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just copy this. Close enough, we'll figure the rest out. So in the triggers, paste this event trigger, mouse over. We want one animation per one. Then we have two, duration, name. Target property we know wants to be opacity. Target name wants to be edit button, which we need to then name the button. Duration will be 1 second, just to see. And opacity on hover will go to 1, so fully visible. Copy that, paste that, go to 0 on leave. So now we just need to name the button, edit button. And by default, make sure it's invisible before any of the hover commands kick in. So now we go here, and on hover, there we go. Now I think that's a little bit slow. So let's just speed that animation up. 0.4 say. And there we go, that's nicer. So now we hover over, we click, we cancel. So that's the hover for that. So now we want to get to the buttons themselves. So once you click this, you want this button to fade out, and then you want to show an edit and a save button, or rather a cancel and a save button. So let's make the edit button disappear. So it's going to be the fade animate. It wants to fade away with the content, so copy the same command, paste that in there. Let's paste it just below that. So now it will fade out when we're in editing mode. And then we won't be able to exit editing mode because we don't have the other buttons, but we'll see it hopefully actual fade out. So, oh, hang on, they aren't. So the issue we've got here as well is we can't have this fade in on here because we're also using a trigger to check the opacity, and this fade in also tries to change it. So we need to move this. We can move it into the button container. But that's going to contain other. This will have to be the container for the edit button only, and then we'll have to put the other buttons in another one, otherwise they'll fade out as well. So because we have the this animation working on opacity, that tries to control the opacity as well as the animation was trying. That's why the buttons weren't hidden when we spun up last time. So we put it on the parent so that the parent's controlled by the animation and the inner buttons controlled by the triggers. So now there we go, so they're not visible there, and then you hover and they're visible. And now clicking, there we go, and now it's completely gone. So this is now when we want to show the save and the cancel buttons. So we're getting there, we're doing this a lot quicker than I thought we would. So we want stack panel because we've got two buttons, grid.column2, same as the other. Orientation will be horizontal because they're side by side. And then we'll have the don't know which way around, save button of the button. We want this to fade in with the edit, so the same as the edit content. So have this button fade in, of the content. Just for now, we'll change this to the font awesome content afterwards. Why am I not seeing the button? Oh, because the edit mode. Let's just hide that a minute so I can see it. Or not, why aren't I seeing anything? Okay, let's just run. Let's see if I can see the button. Yep, so the design is just messed up a little minute. Oh, there we go, now it decides to work. So we can work with, as the content, which like I say, we'll tweak this afterwards. We want, when we press enter, we want as default to true, so we can simply type and press enter and it runs the save. So the command will want to be bound to the save command. The background wants to be green. So it's like a positive colour. Padding similar again to the last button, nice and short, vertical line center. And then font was small. And there we go, we have like a little small save button. So let's paste that back in for the visibility. Copy and paste for the cancel button. For the cancel button we can put an X for now. Binding's the same. As default wants to change to is cancel. For escape button, when you press escape on the keyboard to cancel it, this will be the cancel command. Background will be, say, the word orange as like a negative colour. And I think that's it. Let's just run that and see. We should be seeing, oh yeah, the edit button's faded out for hover, that's why we can't see any button. So hover over, we see those, click, I need some more padding there, but you can see we've got two little buttons, that should cancel, and also we've got padding issues there, that's growing, shrinking, growing, shrinking. But these should now be triggering the, we also want hands on those, these should be triggering the actions. So this button wants a margin of, say, 5 to space out those. They both want the cursor hand. And then we had issues with when these buttons were visible. So let's just, well, in fact, yeah. The padding was just too much somewhere. So as we, or was it the buttons? Let's check if it was the buttons. We might need to just remove. Oh, no, we don't want margin 5 all around. Left 0, top 0, right 5, bottom 0. Just want to push out the margin on the right. Let's just remove the buttons I'm in, and let's see if we get that jumping down. Let's figure out if it's the text box or the buttons that have got the extra padding. I'm pretty sure it's the text box. So hover over. Oh no, so the buttons are adding, I'm not sure how, but the buttons seem to be pushing out the box larger even though they don't fill, so something's slightly off there. Oh, because maybe we've got, yeah, why are they? Because it's the same as, go up into here, that's there, let's change that to 0.5, so I don't think it likes 0.4. Yeah, I'm not sure why this is growing. Because they don't fill anywhere. Oh, we've got to zero out the margins on that button, because by default the button style has a margin. So that was why. Just make sure that margin is 0. Now we shouldn't have an issue with it being too big. There we go. So now we get a nice, hover over to edit, click, fades into an editable text box, click to close, or click to save. And then we'll tweak those button images to some font or some icons, but also let's, before we forget, let's change the edit content back to actual edited content, edited text, and let's also make sure that when we go into edit mode, change that back to normal, and also set the edited text to the current value. So whenever we cancel out of edit mode, we expect it to go back. So basically, instead of on the cancel, simply whenever we come to edit, we'll update it with the latest current value. So this is edited text equals original text. Go into edit mode. So now if we edit some text and then type and cancel and come back, it should revert to the original value, which is the, you know, the behavior you'd expect. So change it, cancel, and then it comes back and it's the same. So that's what we want. And then we could simulate the save button here just for kicks. This won't obviously save anywhere other than in the RAM, but we could say original text equals edited text, and then go out to the mode. And that's not really saving, but it's obviously committing it to the view model. So in memory, it's matched, and this is the effect you'd get. So you'd click in here, you'd type, you cancel, reverts. Click in here, type save, and it saves. So save, cancel. So that's the box working. And I think we just tweak these icons now, and then I think that's, I think I'm quite happy with that. I think that's everything done there. So we've got the cancel, the save, and the hover effect. So let's just fix those icons. So what do we want for, we want like a tick for the save, or I wonder if they've got an actual save. Yeah, floppy disk's a little bit retro, I think, for the save button. I'd say a tick or a check, maybe whatever they're calling it. It must have, there we go, yeah, FA check, so OOC. So we go to fonts, copy paste, font awesome, check. Oh, I'm going to call it tick. And it was OOC. So we can change the, where are we? The save button, content will be that, and the font family will now be font awesome. So now we should have a check button for the save. There we go. And we want a proper cross then, in this case. So do the font awesome cross. Oh, I don't even know what to search for. What else would it be other than cross? Let's just see if we can spot it. Guess it'd be close or cancel maybe. Ah, there we go, close. So D instead of C. We don't already have that, do we? No. So that's D, tick, close. And that's, there we go. So now we have a nice looking UI. And in fact, let's change this dot 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 to an actual ellipsis as well, which I think we've already got. And then at least they all match and they're all nice looking icons. Ooh, that's not so good. Okay, let's put a bit more padding on that button because now it's, oh no, that's the wrong way around, that's why. It's a vertical one. Do we only have a vertical ellipsis? Okay, let's go and get the horizontal ellipsis. So 1 4 1. Let's call it ellipsis 1 4 1. There we go. So that's nicer. So a little dot for editing. You click, you have a tick and a close. Tick now works. And like I say, it's only in memory, but the whole application keeps the same instance. So it's actually technically going to save while the app's running. But again, we'll do that properly. We'll save to our data store when we have one. But that gives you an idea of making this quite complicated but quite neat user control that's completely now view model bound, and all you have to do is bind the values and you can now have it so you can present anything to the user to save, you know, edit text. So I think we'll leave this video here. Next video we will we'll basically change these values in the settings view model to be the actual ones: name, username, password, email, and then we'll make the password box as well, so that we can see the password. So we'll do that in the next video. Hopefully this was a bit more fun video. We're back to doing some, I'd say a bit more exciting things like this user control. I really like these little buttons and keeping all the effects in. I think it looks nice. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Another one will follow soon.